This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Sujata Srinivasan in for Catherine Shen. You are what you eat, the old saying goes. You might take that phrase with a grain of salt, but data shows our diet affects our health. Food can act as medicine. Today, we hear from physicians on how our nutritional choices can improve our health outcomes. But with inflation driving up the cost of groceries, not everyone can eat healthy even if they want to. Today, we'll hear from patients and take a look at one solution. Joining us now is Dr. Anusha Sehgal. She's a classically trained Ayurveda physician, and she's on Zoom from Boston, Massachusetts. In the studio is Dr. Ulysses Wu, Chief Epidemiologist at Hartford Healthcare. Dr. Wu has a great interest in Chinese foods. Thank you both for being here on Where We Live. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So Ayurveda is an ancient system of medicine from India, and Ayur means health, and Veda means knowledge in Sanskrit. Dr. Sehgal, what knowledge does Ayurveda offer on the concept of food as medicine?
Ayurveda views food as one of the fundamental core concepts of sort of like a pillar of life, as we usually phrase it. So as you said in the opening, we are what we eat. And we see that in context of everything that we do. The food that we eat literally becomes our tissues, becomes our cells, provides energy and nutrition for all the different functions of our body. So how we eat, what we eat, can have a huge impact in how it influences either our health having challenges or also improving our health.
Now, how does Ayurveda approach the concept of food as medicine?
Well, just as we said, since food has such a big influence in how our daily functions are maintained, those foods can be modified based on what the specific needs are of the body. So for instance, in this season, we can see that as well, given that how cold it has been in the past couple of weeks, we know that during this time, our body responds to more warm cooked foods because it actually also helps to improve our body temperature. It helps to improve circulation just by physically being warm. And it actually also improves digestion, as well as when it can help to kind of ward off some of the common things we may see during the season, such as the cough, cold, fevers. The warm cooked foods definitely help in that.
And I understand that Ayurvedic foods are prescribed according to each person's body type. Now, what are these body types and how does this work?
So we do recognize that there are 3 doshas, which basically represents the 5 elements that we see in the outer universe, as well as the same 5 elements that we may see in our body. And these 3 doshas are sort of the functional components, but they also describe certain body types. So a vata body type would be someone who tends to move a lot. They tend to be lighter, very airy-like, and is in constant movement. A pitta body type is usually someone who has a very high metabolism. They tend to process things very quickly. And then a kapha body type tends to be a bit more grounded and a bit more stable. So based on these different body types, we might notice that they respond to certain foods in a slightly different way, or might have also slightly different nutritional needs as well.
And these 3 types, are they all concentrated in every individual, or does each individual have a little bit of everything? And does Ayurveda look at balancing some of these various components?
Absolutely. So everybody has a little bit of all 3, but when we say as someone has a certain body type, we see one that is more predominant over the others. So say, like, again, either they're predominant in vata, in that airiness. So for them, they may respond better to more grounding, very nourishing foods. It's similarly for a pitta body type, pitta is predominant. Since they have a very high metabolism, they really do need to feed that metabolism. Otherwise, they tend to burn things very quickly. They tend to metabolize and work through their nutrition very quickly. So they tend to be hungry a lot. And so therefore they need to have that kind of sustenance in their food to keep up with the demands of their body. Whereas the kapha body type, being more grounded, usually doesn't can actually go a little bit longer if they don't have as much nutrition, because their body tends to work things out in a more steady pace. So for them, the nutrition profile might be slightly different, the demands might be different. And they also can sometimes go with certain lighter foods that tend to match or balance their system.
Great. Now, Dr. Wu, Chinese medicine has this concept also of balance. And please correct me if I'm getting this wrong. Shirley Yao?
You probably did it better than me, so I apologize to my Asian brethren.
Balancing the yin and yang in the body through food. Could you explain what this is and how that works?
Well, first of all, I'm fascinated by what the good doctor has already said, because the similarities are so close. And so you're absolutely right. Shi Liao is it's otherwise known as Chinese food therapy. And what it does is balance that yin and yang and all the concepts that the good doctor has already spoken about, which is the warming and the cooling. For example, it is very seasonal. We're in the yang phase, we're in the warming phase. And so a lot of the spices in the foods tend to really revolve around that. So we're talking high calorie, we're talking spicy, bitter, acidic, even hot colored foods. So the orange and the reds, and even alcohol is a component of this. And so with the alcohol, the liquors tend to be a little bit darker as well. But it is around this warming and cooling, and we're currently in a warming phase at this point.
And in Western medicine, we approach this. You mentioned high calorie, but I'm thinking, this is coming from a Western trained doctor and a classically trained doctor, but you seem pretty unfazed and smiling. As I'm looking at you talking about, high calorie foods, it's all right. That it depends on where the calorie comes from, I suppose, and how that impacts the body, how that nurtures the body in this phase of so-called, as we speak, hibernating and moving through winter. So could you please explain, what these foods are? What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the yang and the yin, as we are in the yang phase, a lot of this dates back to probably the 600s and the 700s, that time period. And so when the concept is that they used to use herbs as medicine. The problem back then is the herbs tasted so terrible, and they would also be toxic as well.
Oh my goodness.
So they incorporated it into foods. And then so by natural, I guess, adding on to that, then these foods themselves became medicine. But at this time, with you're right, high calorie foods, we always said everything in moderation, but it does include things like meats. It include, like, my favorite is offal, or the organ meats. These are considered deep fried, baked, and again, the alcohol. These are all considered these warming foods. I'm not going to say that I eat these on a regular basis, for sure.
And Dr. Segal, what are some warming foods that are good for all body types? What are some of your favorites?
I would say across the board, we love ginger. And I think for all traditional medical systems, ginger seems to be one of our favorite things, because it's widely accessible, usually tastes really great, and is definitely one of those warming foods. Other things that are very easily accessible are things like black pepper, that also falls into the warming category. We have things like cumin seeds that tends to be pretty versatile, can be added into so many different types of dishes. It does give that warming effect, but it's not so overpowering on your palate. So we tend to like spices like that. Then there are a variety of other spices, of course, that we can incorporate. Things like, in this season, the fresh herbs aren't as available. So you're going to have more of your dried herbs or dried spices. But most of the dried spices are definitely more favorable during this season, not only in cooking, but also in marinating, like especially meat can be very useful at this time to provide that extra nutrition to kind of give your metabolism something to burn so that it can keep you warm and keep you sustained. We do tend to burn more calories during the winter season, and the more cold it gets, we notice that our body has a higher demand. So to keep up with that, we also agree of using those grounding foods, those really high calorie things, but making sure that we're able to digest them. So just as Dr. Wu was mentioning, we incorporate these spices or we incorporate herbs into the cuisine to make sure that the food is accessible, it digests better, and your body can actually utilize that nutrition to sustain you based on the demands, especially of the season or also the demands of certain body types.
Now, hearing you talk is reminding me of my spice box back home and the cumin and the ginger. I mean, I'm thinking I could make this really warm, nourishing khichdi, which is one of my favorite foods for the winter. But these are ethnic foods, and they are growing up in a multicultural home, with multicultural experiences. These foods become part of our lives. But what if someone hasn't tried these spices, hasn't used ginger in their daily cooking? Now, someone that has pizzas and pasta, mashed potatoes. How do you incorporate turmeric? How do you incorporate cumin? How do you incorporate ginger in those foods?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and really, obviously, through experimentation. But you start with low doses to begin with. So, and there are traditionally made curries that you will ground, you will put in a pan, and you will combine them together. But you can also buy them in the store, and we don't always recommend that. But a good example is the 5-spice, right? The Chinese 5-spice, which is a combination of star anise, fennel, Szechuan peppercorns, cloves, and cinnamon. Now, you may not buy all of those separately and then try to combine it yourself. But what you do is you incorporate it. And what it does is it takes, going back to the concept of the traditional Chinese medicine, it takes the 5 fundamental flavors, the sweet, the bitter, the salty, and then the savory or umami. And it aligns with what the good doctor said before, the elements as well. So the sweet pertains to the earth, the sour pertains to the wood, the bitter and the acid pertains to fire, salty, believe it or not, with the water, and the savory or umami with metal. And so you're already eating a lot of these things in small percentages. Like savory, for example, comes the umami. That's found in Parmesan cheese, roasted tomatoes, like these lovely roasted mushrooms. These are these lovely earthy, savory flavors. And so I think it's okay to expand on that and take the flavors that you like and then start using them in increasing amounts. Turmeric, I'm not an expert, not traditionally used in Chinese cooking, but used in Southern Chinese cooking to a certain extent. And based off of its antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, you sort of add it. Could you add it to mashed potatoes? Absolutely, with maybe a little bit of horseradish or something like that. So I think you add it in amounts that you can tolerate and just experiment.
Yes, and you mentioned doses, and I see the doctor in you coming through and through in both of you. What about the immune system supports? There's some data that shows, turmeric and ginger, they support the immune system, especially now with this versions of flu that seem to be quite severe among some populations. How do you recommend? I mean, we speak about doses, but how much do we use of these spices? How frequently do we use of these spices? There's been some research too that talks about people taking supplement pills, and that could be too much on a daily basis. It could thin the blood too much. How do you know what is the right amount?
Yeah, and I think that last point that you brought up is the most important point. This is one of those things where you want to have control over your own source. So grinding of the spices or accessing the natural spices itself, because you're right. Some of these have been associated in toxic doses with hepatotoxicity or liver toxicity, as well as GI upset or distress. But when you mention it in manufactured form where there's no regulation, there have been impurities that have also caused these toxicities. So I would suggest, it's a good point to use them in terms of the immune system as antioxidants, as antibacterials, that you use it in your dishes as a natural form, because believe it or not, if you use too much, it's going to taste terrible anyway. So that is kind of the rate limiting factor.
Great. And Dr. Segal, Dr. Wu mentioned these 5 flavors, the umami, the sour, the salty. Is there an equivalent at all in Ayurveda?
Oh, absolutely. We have the same taste profile. We, in fact, we mentioned 6 tastes. So we include astringent as one of the tastes. And I think that kind of gets included somewhat in the umami flavor as well, because there's a very slight amount of astringency there. But yes, I think there's a lot of parallels between Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine in the context of also how we look at the body, different aspects of functions, and also in the balancing, what we find in nature to help to support our health. There are a lot of parallels between TCM and Ayurveda.
Mm. And as an Ayurveda physician, what does a typical patient appointment look like in your office? Could you talk about some of the types of conversations you're having with your patients?
Sure. So this is actually very much relevant to our conversation, where in our usual intake, we talk about things that's concerning the person about their health. And we also go into detail about their dietary practices, their habits. What are some of the things they typically eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or what are their dietary patterns like? We also talk about, learning about their sleep schedules. What is the quality of sleep that they have? We also talk about other digestive health, sort of like their bowel habits, things like that. So these are all the daily necessary functions. And based on some of these patterns, it can help us to understand the role that this may be playing in how they may be feeling currently, and also how we can tweak the diet and lifestyle factors to help to support their health, to bring things back into balance. So even when it comes to a regular intake, our recommendations also usually start with the diet and food patterns, how we can shift that into something that is also feasible. I think sometimes it can seem like, when we're talking about food, it has to be idealistic or it has to be perfect. And I think that's not always feasible for everyone. But if we understand the nature of food, we can tweak and modify whatever a person has access to in order for it to match and support their body, support their health. So I think that's where the intake really comes in, where it does become personalized. We have some general ideas about what foods generally tend to be healthy for people, but we also have to look at the specific individual and also what they have access to.
Yes, access. And as a healthcare journalist, I'm always concerned about, how we bring all this good knowledge, these good foods to people who are food insecure, who are nutrition deficient, and who, even if they want to eat healthy, may not be able to do that because of, affordability reasons. So what are some foods that are accessible in terms of pricing that fits within a reasonable grocery monthly budget?
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point, because freshness is really a demand in a lot of these foods. If you can have, fresh turmeric, fresh ginger, fresh garlic, it's always better. Some of the foods that are considered anti-inflammatory, mushrooms, broccoli, scallions, lettuce, these are things that are difficult to obtain. And so you may have to travel a little bit, especially if there are grocery store deserts around you. But the reality is, some of these pre-processed foods, they don't contain any of these ingredients. And so I think the general good rule of thumb is certainly go with freshness, especially when it comes to vegetables, when it comes to spices. Spices do last for quite some time if you can store them and if you can grind them. And then when it comes to things like meats, as we talked about with the yang and the warming season, what you want to do is look for the offcuts. Like I talked about the organ meats, the offal, which, I will certainly partake. You don't necessarily have to get the fillet all the time, or, the antibiotic, or the natural, chicken breast or whatever it may be. Get find access to some of the offcuts that may be more inexpensive that may be available.
Thank you. Dr. Segal, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dr. Wu mentioned in the sense that some of the dried spices, as we mentioned, they can last for a very long time. And actually, they're pretty inexpensive because when you buy a small amount, you can have that for about a year. It really depends on how much you're using. And as part of the earlier conversation, the benefit of using spices as part of the diet that also tends to have therapeutic properties. But in food, we use a very small amount because we don't want these higher dosages that will obviously ruin the taste of the food, but also can be overwhelming to the system. So incorporating that into the food, into our dietary patterns, they're smaller dosages, it's much more tolerable for our system, and it actually tends to work out much more easily for our digestive system to metabolize, to absorb that, and still get some of those therapeutic properties. So I think dried spices can be very cost effective, as well as, if we think about vegetables, whatever vegetables you have access to, when they're not processed, they're actually cheaper than if you buy them when they're processed. So like, for instance, buying already cut vegetables is more expensive than if you buy a bag of like all of those vegetables where it's actually around the same amount, but you get more from the non-cut vegetables or the whole fresh vegetables compared to if it has already been processed. And even frozen foods can sometimes be a little bit of a, good access, because if you don't have fresh, sometimes that's the freshest option that is available. So in the context of when something we don't have access to fresh, the next best option might be the frozen vegetables as well. If you have access to fresh, we definitely prefer that over it. But if you don't have access to that, then the frozen vegetables can definitely, work out in a pinch.
You heard that here. Eat your vegetables, people. Dr. Ulysses Wu, Chief Epidemiologist at Hartford Healthcare, will stay with us for this hour. Ayurveda physician, Dr. Anusha Segal, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, in 2022, Hartford Healthcare launched a program for patients living with life-threatening conditions who are also experiencing food insecurity. We learn more. Are you hoping to eat healthier this new year? Let us know. Join the conversation. 888-720-WNPR or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Sujata Srinivasan in for Catherine Shen. Living with a chronic health condition can take a toll on daily life, including decisions about what to eat. Skip Lewis works at a fast food restaurant in Connecticut. At the age of 19, he was diagnosed with PKD, that's polycystic kidney disease, a disorder that reduces kidney function and can lead to other complications. He's here today in the studio. Skip, welcome to Where We Live.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Doing good, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Also with us here are two people who are leading two initiatives at Hartford Healthcare. We have the Chief Epidemiologist, and we have David Juros at Hartford Healthcare's Food for Health Clinic. Welcome to both of you. Dr. Wu is staying with us this hour.
Thank you.
So, Skip, I understand that PKD runs in your family.
Yes.
What is this condition, and how did you first learn about it?
So PKD is a kidney disease. I first learned about it when I was diagnosed in 2014. I was on a swimming and diving team at my college. I was doing a dive, landed on my back, and then went to the hospital because I was peeing blood. So that night, pretty much spent the whole night there, diagnosed with PKD, hypertension, and that's where the story began.
I'm so sorry you have to go through that. And And it runs in your family. So what is it like in your family? What have you seen among your family members?
So pretty much a lot of my mom's side of the family has it. My mother, she's on dialysis right now. My aunt, she's on dialysis. I had a cousin pass away this year from a stroke because of hypertension and kidney disease. It's kind of just it's draining watching the people in your life go through it.
I'm sorry. What has it been for you to live with PKD for so many years? And have you ever experimented with foods? Do some foods help more than others?
When I first started with PKD, the first thing I had to do was kind of learn what foods didn't sit well in my stomach. So over time, it's changed. My gut health has changed. I remember years ago, I used to be able to eat ice cream like crazy. Now, if I do, it's not going to be fun. And get like irritable bowel syndrome, start swelling up. Just not really fun. I can sit price here and talk about it for days, but it's more of a psychological thing you go through. Because you can deal with the physical pain. We all go through pain every day, but it's kind of the drain day after day, just knowing like, all right, I can't do this, I can't do that. Having to switch my entire lifestyle. I grew up in East Hartford, and I went to school in East Hartford High. I was a swimmer and diver on that team, so a lot of my, life was focused around sports and athletics, maintaining a healthy body, healthy goals, healthy, lifestyle like that. So the whole switch of getting diagnosed and having to just do something completely different is tough. It's like reprogramming yourself. That's the toughest part, I think. It's been this whole journey, reprogram myself and then trying to find ways to reprogram my family. Find ways to, hey, don't eat that, don't eat, whatever you've been eating, high fructose corn syrup, a lot of seed oils and stuff like that.
Seed oils. What are some of your favorite foods that you feel don't sit well with you? You mentioned ice cream, but do you have a...
I love ice cream, but it doesn't sit well with me. Let me think about some foods that,
I understand when we were chatting a bit
soul
that...
food, probably. I would say soul food is number one. It's a big part of my culture, but it's probably how we cook it isn't the healthiest many times. Frying food, that's not good. I know my family, they fry food at least once a week. My dad's either frying fish, frying chicken, fry. And then, yeah.
Ethnic foods, they can nourish. Their stories. Soul food is more than food. It's culture, it's history, it's family. But as you mentioned, it's the ways of cooking that can come in the way, especially when it's highly fatty, highly salty. And food historian Adrian Miller says soul food, and I quote, brilliantly captures the humanity and heroic effort of African Americans to overcome centuries of oppression and create a cuisine that deliciously melds the foods and cooking techniques of West Africa, Western Europe, and the Americas. What is it about soul food that, speaks to your soul, Skip?
The taste. It's the taste. You can't beat it, if I'm being honest.
And some of these recipes, I suppose, are handed down. And it becomes part of the family fabric too, right? When you gather together.
Yeah. I say one of the biggest recipes that's passed around is probably the mac and cheese. Mac and cheese. But then if you kind of look at everything that's in the mac and cheese, you got, gluten and you got dairy mixed on it. You're putting a lot of stuff into one dish and you're eating it, consuming it. And it's not the best, I think, overall.
Sweet potato and greens are common in soul foods, and they really are superfoods. There's quite an effort, and rightly so, to honor and appreciate the food while finding healthier ways to cook it. Now, the PKD Foundation urges all patients to reduce salt, avoid processed meats like ham and bacon, and soul food recipes call for substitutes that are healthier, sautéing instead of deep frying, for instance. Now, is that something that you see happening in the foods, soul foods that you're now eating more than before?
Yeah, there's a lot of substitutes. I know, like, one of my favorite substitutes is sweet potato. I just thought about that one. Sweet potato is a good one to substitute instead of, regular, more starchy potatoes. Another good one you could probably substitute is quinoa. Quinoa is a good one to replace a lot of rice. That's all I can think about right now for the most part.
And does it speak to? I mean, does it taste as good? Are you happy with it? Is it still
that comes
soul
down
food?
to the chef. I say I really don't eat too many other people's food because a lot of people don't know how to season the way I like. But that's also the problem, the seasoning. So a lot of salt, you have to stop using that. You have to find more herbs. I've been trying to expand on different herbs I have, but it comes down to access right now. I don't have access to a lot of different options that are affordable as well. So.
And you work in a fast food restaurant, and burgers and fries are pretty much the staple there. Fries are delicious. Yes, you heard it here on Where We Live. I said it. But do you think it's hard to eat healthy with all this cheap, affordable food around you?
Yeah, it's everywhere I look. There's I can go down the street right now and find 2 Burger Kings, 2 McDonald's, and I think there's a Wendy over there in Bloomfield. But the fact is, I can find more fast food restaurants than I can find farms. I can't name a single farm really. Well, I was told about one today, hydroponic farms that we have on top of the roofs. I never heard about that in Hartford. So, and I've lived here my entire life. So I was a firefighter. I've never heard of any of this stuff. So access, education, knowledge is lacking in a lot of places.
So we have here with us David Giuros. He's the operations manager of Food for Health Clinic at Hartford Healthcare. David, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Could you respond to what we just heard from Skip? The fact that access, affordability, patient health being transformed through food, and where you come in, where Hartford Healthcare comes into the picture.
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges in Hartford is that access and affordability is very difficult, and true in a lot of parts of our country, unfortunately. Certainly affordability has become a very big issue these days. But in the city, access is really a challenge. There's not enough grocery stores, not enough farm stands, not enough farms. And that was one of the challenges that Hartford Healthcare decided to tackle for our patients, is helping them with these issues to be able to help them on their health journey and help them to become healthier and find the foods that they need that are going to nourish their bodies instead of harming their bodies. So the Food for Health program was started in 2022 as a solution to that, a clinic right on campus at the hospital where patients can come and be able to get healthy foods to be able to help them with their health journey.
And how long do they get this food? I understand it's of no cost to them. Who bears the cost?
Absolutely. No cost to patients at all. They're able to come to us for up to a year. And during that time, they can shop weekly for themselves and their families, be able to get the healthy foods that they need. We're certainly not a full-line grocery store, but we curate, I would say, the food to make sure that we have culturally relevant, as you spoke about a few moments ago, but also diverse foods that we can help people learn more about the healthy foods, try foods that maybe they haven't tried before, and be able to incorporate them into their diet to be more healthy.
How does someone become eligible for this program?
We work with 24 different clinics across Hartford Hospital, and the clinicians are able to refer patients to us. And once they are referred to us, they come and we orient them and are able to start to learn about the foods. They work directly one-on-one with our volunteers, so they have that one-on-one experience, and that helps them to learn and to try new things and be able to be successful.
What conditions do they come with? I mean, if they are referred to you by your clinicians, what conditions are you looking to address through food?
We've really widened it over time as the program has grown and become more successful. The primary conditions are the chronic diet-related disease, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, but we've also branched out to the transplant clinic. We help patients both pre-transplant to get their body healthier, as well as post-transplant to make sure their transplant will be successful, and other clinics across the hospital campus.
How do you measure success? Do you have, I mean, this program's been there since 2022. What are some outcomes data that you've measured in terms of, perhaps the way I would, I'm thinking is maybe blood pressure control, better cardiovascular health, better blood sugar control. What are the parameters you're looking at, and how close have you gotten to those outcomes?
So we are looking at a lot of different measures. We actually are in the middle of a research program right now that we're looking at exactly what you said, A1C, we're looking at blood pressure, we're looking at BMI, but we're also looking at other measures such as patients, really being more interactive with their health journey. And sometimes a program like Food for Health can really incite patients to take more care, keep up with their appointments, and make sure they're taking their medications and working with their doctors. We often refer our patients to doctors at Hartford Healthcare that maybe they're not even speaking to about different aspects of their health. So we can really improve that interactivity with the healthcare system and patients so that they can be as successful as possible.
Right, and so that's an illustration of managing a certain disease,
right,
and the outcomes. And I'm hearing that patients are more engaged with the entire system once they come in through this food approach.
Right.
You say culturally engaged. How does that happen?
Cultural engagement often happens through the food. Some patients come to us and they say, "Oh, I know I need to be healthier, so I can't eat any of the culturally relevant food, the food that's common for my culture." We tell them not at all. We want you to eat those foods. You might have to tweak and modify to be able to make them a little bit more healthy, as Skip was talking about. It's changing up some of it, but it's not losing that, because that's such a critical part. What we've learned, and what I know dietitians know, is that you need to take baby steps in making these kinds of behavior changes. You can't expect someone to just wholesale change everything they're eating. So it's addition, it's adding things to dishes, it's subtracting little details. I know Dr. Wu talked about spices, really important. We grow and give our patients basil and cilantro and parsley, really important to flavor things without salt and butter. So we work really hard with patients on those things. And again, those are little changes, baby steps that can make a big difference over time.
And you're doing all this while countering the impact of the proliferation of fast foods. And this has been since the 1960s. There have been many policies, both federal, and concentrated marketing strategies to come into, you mentioned Hartford, and, places where cheap, unhealthy food is targeted to certain populations. And that's had a devastating effect on health outcomes. But it's affordable. I mean, it gets people fed. So how does it work in terms of budget? I mean, if you want to, when you want to eat healthy, like, what are your go-tos, Skip?
In terms of budgeting, I try to stay as cheap as I can, but as healthy as I can. Can you ask that question one more time?
So when you budget for food, for your food, and you're surrounded by all this fast food and you work in a fast food place, like, how do you eat healthy on a budget?
I don't really think those two things can go not really synonymous.
It just breaks my heart to hear that. It truly does. It breaks my heart to hear that. Could you respond to what Skip said, Dr. Wu?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take this down to more of the existential level, a lot of these foods that are available, that are commercially available, they're profit motivated. They're not nutritionally motivated. I mean, here we have diametrically opposed viewpoints. What Mr. Juros is actually proposed or has done, and I didn't actually even know about this program until probably 2023. And when I saw that, the rooftop garden, I mean, it's amazing, but there is no profit. It is strictly altruistic from a health standpoint. And so you have this diametrically opposing views of profit versus nourishment, nutrition. And so in the end, there is the component of what you do at Hartford Healthcare that every revolution starts with a whisper. And that is the hope. That's where it is, because you're basically going against the mega profit giants that will force out manufactured processed foods, and thus you have trouble with the access, unfortunately.
Yep.
Staying with us today is Skip Lewis. He lives in Hartford, works at a fast food restaurant, and has polycystic kidney disease. And staying with us, David Juros, Hartford Healthcare. And still with us, Dr. Ulysses Wu, Chief Epidemiologist at Hartford Healthcare. Join the conversation, 888-720-WNPR. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Sujata Srinivasan. There are few things more healing than a hot bowl of soup, especially in this cold weather, but foods can do more than offer comfort. Our experts today say that our food choices each day can impact our long-term health. With us is David Juros, Operations Manager of Food for Health at Hartford Healthcare. Still with us, Dr. Ulysses Wu, Chief Epidemiologist at Hartford Healthcare, and Skip Lewis. He lives in Hartford, works at a fast food restaurant, and has polycystic kidney disease. Dr. Wu, when patients express that they want to eat healthy, but they can't because they can't afford it, how do you help them navigate that conversation? Does this happen at all?
Well, I think it's a great question, because it's a difficult question, because it's not just a matter of cost, because a lot of this also factors into time. And then also there's an inertia that has been created their whole entire life, whether it be the environment that they grew up in, whether it be the cultural standards that they have adhered to, that they also have to overcome. And so money does, it is probably, I would say, the rate limiting factor, but what we neglect when we talk to our patients is the time that is involved. Fast food, it's in the name. It's fast food. That's much easier to go grab a burger rather than sit down and slow cook some collard greens, with some with the Chinese 5 spice over several hours. And so I think when you talk to patients, not just to focus on the money, but also talk about the time, and is there a willingness to overcome the inertia that you have developed in your life. For me, for example, I'm always looking for new things to try. Always. I grew up in a traditional Chinese household, but I am fascinated by other ethnic foods. I love soul food. I absolutely love soul food. And so I think branching out, that inertia is also a conversation that needs to be had.
Right. And the fact that all foods can be made healthy.
Yes.
With substitutes and the way we cook. Yes. Now, I've spoken to patients on this program who've told me how wonderful it was in terms of their blood pressure control, blood sugar control, HbA1c levels measurably coming down. But then one woman told me that when she got off that program, I spoke to Jessica Soto, and she said once she got off that program, she was not able to eat healthy anymore. She said she learned to eat new foods for the first time. She tasted Brussels sprouts for the first time. She was excited. She cooked healthy. She ate healthy, and her whole family ate healthy because, it was a gift that every month she was able to come and take healthy food home. But now she's absolutely not able to. And this seems like, people come, people benefit, but then there's this huge regression. So what are you doing about it? What is the handoff strategy that, are you developing one at all?
That's a great question. It's one of the challenges with these programs is that at some point it has to end for the patients.
Right.
There's a couple different ways that we work with that. Number one is education. During the time that they're with us, they're educated one-on-one every time by our volunteers that they come. They meet with our dietitian at least 2 times, mandatory 2 times. They can meet other times as they feel they want to or need to. And then we also do nutrition ed classes and financial ed classes in bulk, in multiple people, monthly for our patients as well to help them learn. At the end of a program like this, at the end of your term in a program like this, we hope that you've learned enough knowledge from us and from all of the pieces that you're able to continue doing this on your own. And you've got some tips and tricks and ways to just incorporate additional healthy aspects to your food to make it better for you. But we also roll patients off to other programs. We have a really great program in the city is Grocery on Broad. By Forged by Fire. And every patient, every person that goes there gets some kind of a discount, up to 50% off, depending on income levels. What a great opportunity. And it helps patients with that affordability aspect, but also the accessibility, because it's here in the city and patients can access it. So we work very hard to make sure patients understand how to continue this, even though they're not necessarily getting the benefit from us anymore.
We have just a few minutes, but have you heard back from patients? Are you hearing back from people that this is working once they leave, that they are being able to connect and continue? So that's one. And also, what's up next in terms of Hartford Healthcare's food initiative? What can we expect?
Absolutely. We do hear from some patients that afterwards they are able to continue making the changes, but it's hard. It takes commitment. It takes commitment to be able to make that behavior change and be able to continue to do that hard work to be able to continue that health journey. But working in partnership with clinicians, I think that helps patients because they're hearing the same message from multiple sources. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. We've had a lot of patients that have done really well with it. What's up next is we plan to continue expanding Food for Health across the Hartford healthcare system. We're at the Institute of Living now, and we're also at Charlotte Hungerford Hospital in Torrington. And this year we plan to expand to another 2 or 3 locations across the system. In addition, we are in permitting right now for building a greenhouse on campus at Hartford Hospital, right on the edge of campus, so we can continue growing. Grow on 2 rooftops right now. The addition of the greenhouse will help us to be able to grow year-round, but an important aspect of that is in the front of that space, we will have community space. We'll have a permanent farm stand for the community around the hospital to help people be able to get that food either for free or at a very, very low cost, and be able to continue that even if they're not a patient, even if they're not part of the Food for Health program, they'll be able to take on some of that great healthy food that we grow.
Wonderful. Thank you, David Juros and Dr. Ulysses Wu and Skip Lewis. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Stay well. I'm Sujata Srinivasan, Tess Terrible, my wonderful colleague, and I co-produced today's show. Isaac Maas was our phone screener. Our technical producer is Dylan Reyes and Eugene Amatruda. Thanks for listening. Be well.